on the phone, retired Marine Corps pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Greg King, graduate of Morehouse, member of Kappa Alpha Psi. And good morning.
Good morning, Rickey. How are you?
Hey, man, thank you for joining us this morning and jumping on with us. At the last second. I'm just really curious. How long you been flying?
I started flying in '91 and had my last flight in 2004, so about 13 years.
Right. So what determines whether you should go up or not? Like,
yeah, because the helicopter has special approval to fly in this foggy weather. So, what does that mean? Did the pilot have permission to say, hey, you know what, we're going to keep it down because all the other flights decided they wanted to keep it on the ground?
Well, it's my understanding that the weather at the airport that he left, the John Wayne Airport, was actually pretty good. They said the visibility was 4 miles or better, which means that he didn't need to fly or file an instrument flight rules, which you keep hearing about, IFR and VFR, instrument flight rules. He didn't have to file an IFR flight plan to get out of there because the cloud cover, the ceiling was better than 1,000 feet, and he had better than 3 miles of visibility. So the destination weather, I haven't heard what the destination weather at the airport was when he decided to take off, but I'm certain he checked the present weather where he was, the destination weather, and the weather along the route. And he may or may not have had pressure from the passengers, to get going and let's do this. That could have factored into his decision-making to go. But, as far as the folks that weren't flying, we keep hearing about the L.A. Sheriff's Department and the cops weren't flying. I don't think that he would even know that, right? He's on the ground. He's checking weather services. He's not checking with the cops. Hey, are y'all flying? Right. And the weather, wherever the LAPD was, the weather there could have been totally different than the weather where he was. So, again, his weather was good. I think he got airborne, though, and started on the way and realized up around Burbank where they had him holding overhead for 15 minutes or so while they cleared traffic in the airspace. I think that he started to see the weather deteriorate, right? And so he went from the visual flight rules to, hey, can you guys give me some special handling? And that's that special visual flight rules request that he made, basically saying, hey, I don't have, it's not necessarily a, cloud cover of 1,003 anymore. It's a little less than optimal, but I think I can maintain my cloud clearances up here and keep navigating to where I'm going. And so they said, cool, you could do that. But, he's sitting out there holding over Burbank, and I think the weather's starting to deteriorate.
So why do you think he descended? Came down at a lower altitude?
Yeah. So what I think he did was after holding over Burbank there, and then they finally cleared him through, and you see they told him to follow the highways down and around. Well, my understanding, this was not a direction he normally went, right? If he was VFR, he could have just gone, the most expeditious route through the airspace to get to where he was going. But with the traffic there in Burbank, they had him up in an area he didn't know, hadn't flown in, and when he started down around Burbank towards Van Nuys, they said their weather was 2.5 miles of visibility, right? So that's
So tell the listeners what 2.5 miles of visibility means.
Oh, so what we're talking about is how far in front of you can you see, right? So think about if you're driving your car, can you see another car or an obstacle 2.5 miles in front of you?
Right. Okay.
Right. So that's essentially what we're saying. And so if you look at VFR, visual flight rules, we're just saying you're flying visually, okay? You're just flying off the seat of your pants. You can see. That's how you're flying. When we talk about instrument flight rules, we're saying you're flying off your instruments in your helicopter. You're flying the airways, which are essentially highways, right, in the sky. They've got prescribed directions, altitudes. You're talking to air traffic controllers the entire time, and they have you on their radar the entire time, and they're keeping you safe. When you're on your own, essentially on your own, VFR, you're having to keep yourself from hitting other obstacles in other aircraft. So he went through Van Nuys, and then I think they tried to switch him over to SoCal Air Traffic Control.
So they tried to switch him to another traffic. Okay, another. So so overall, if you had to guess, you think that if you just had to guess, we're not saying that you're saying, you think that it would be pilot error.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I think when he got around that last airport, Van Nuys, he was at like 1,500 feet, and somebody said that he made a climb to 2,300 feet. I think he entered some clouds at 1,500 feet, said, oh, my goodness, let me climb to get out, right? Because I've been there. I hit the clouds. I wasn't slow to be in the clouds, and thank God I climbed and I got out. I think he got to 2,300 feet, didn't get out, and said, I've got to get this thing on the ground. And he started, they said, a descending left turn to come down. I think he was trying to land, right? Witnesses said he was flying really slow, trying to land, and it just impacted the mountain while he's trying to navigate and find some place to land. He crashed straight into the mountain. And
hold that thought. We got retired Marine Corps pilot Lieutenant Colonel Greg King. Greg King is saying thoughts that I had already came up because yesterday we pulled up the flight pattern.
Yeah.
And do you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, well, I wanted to know, and, we don't fly. However, you have logged over, 3,500 hours in the air. And I want to know this whole black box idea. We know that there's supposed to be a black box when you fly, but in this instance, there wasn't a black box, and it wasn't required on this flight. What is the deal with that?
Yeah, the cockpit voice recorder, right? Didn't have one. I think it's just not a requirement on all aircraft to have them. I would essentially think it's important on the commercial airliners, right, carrying multiple people. But apparently for, the private helicopters, it wasn't necessary. And I'm not really up on all the rules and regulations surrounding the needs for the voice recorders, but they didn't have one, and that's unfortunate because we won't know what was actually going on in the cockpit. But they do have the recordings out there of the external communications to the air traffic controllers and the two towers that they talked to.
Yeah, I wonder, was there a time when the pilot called in like a mayday or something, and did he have time to even ask for help or ask what to do?
Yeah, I think he was asking for flight following there towards the end. So if
was
you're
asking for
flying flight, I'm sorry. Yeah, flight following.
And what does that mean?
Yeah, I think all he was asking for is, I need you, Mr. Air Traffic Controller, to keep me on your radar, keep talking to me, and keep me safe and clear from obstacles, right? And so the controller was telling him, you're too low for flight following. He was flying at like 1,500 feet, I think, at the time. And so if radars can't pick him up, right, you think about people always talking about flying under the radar or the stealth planes flying really low to get into enemy territory. If you're too low, the aircraft get caught up in the ground clutter and the radar can't see them. And so if they can't see him, they can't help him stay away from the mountain that he crashed into. The only way that he could have gotten flight following is to climb, which we also heard that he tried to do there toward the end. But I think he just got caught in more and more clouds. And when you're in the clouds and you're not supposed to be in the clouds, it seems like forever. When I got caught in, it was probably only 5-10 seconds and I was out. But it seemed like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, that the reports came out that when he did climb, he barely cleared what he thought was like the highest mountain. Like he barely cleared it. So he felt like, since I cleared this mountain, I'm good to go. And then he started descending down to 1,700 feet, still thinking that he was on top, higher than the mountains. And that's when he ran into that second mountain.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What do you do now if you fly a lot, or if your kids are headed to a tournament? And how do you, rid yourself of anxiety knowing that anything can happen in the air?
Yeah. Excuse me. That's a great question. I mean, we go through it after all the tragic accidents. After 9/11, nobody wanted to fly again, looking at everybody crazy. Are you a terrorist? But I think we have to continue flying. I mean, flying is extremely safe, right? You're more likely to die, unfortunately, in a car accident going to and from work, right?
Right.
Yeah, and like Rickey said, I hate to call it pilot error, but I mean, I think you nailed it, Rickey. It was just poor judgment in the end, but I'm not laying blame on him, but that's essentially what it's looking like. And absent any evidence that there was a mechanical malfunction, and we're armchair quarterbacking here, but when he asked for that special VFR clearance, he could have just as well asked for an instrument flight rules clearance at that same time, holding over that airport, and they would have picked him up. They would have given him his instructions, climb to this altitude, turn this direction, and he could have been on his merry way to the airport, flying off his instruments.
Right. Hey, we're gonna talk to you again because I'm sure we're gonna, in the days to come, we're gonna have more questions. I am so happy to have you, man. Thank you for joining us this morning. Retired Marine Corps helicopter pilot, Morehouse graduate, member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Thank you for joining us to help us try to understand what could have happened with Sunday's fatal helicopter crash that killed 9 people, including Kobe Bryant and his daughter. Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.